Okay, Loner Warriors, this is a check-in and an update on how's it going. So, I was gifted the specific generational curse to break, a black mindset, which is deeply rooted in our species, in nature, there's survival. If you've heard of like the first peoples, that can be dated back thousands and thousands of years, even here in the Americas. That's what it was, you know. And I'm finding it challenging to switch over into that abundance mindset, which is I am loved and I am love. And I'm saying it and I'm thinking it, but I'm not feeling it because my inner child is still hurt. Like, my childhood was rocky, to say the least. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old. Didn't see my dad a lot after that, except when he wanted to play Santa. And my mom worked 3 jobs sometimes and didn't always get to see her. And I would hang out in the next town over at my grandpa's and grandma's, which was my dad's side, with all the cousins and all the chaos and all the church you can handle. So my grandpa was a Pentecostal pastor, and his salvation testimony was walking down the street. He might have been tipsy or drunk, but that was something he was struggling with, was alcoholism. And that's something I struggled with too in my life. And I not only asked him about this testimony multiple times, like we all did, but I asked him about another. I asked him about blacking out because I had experienced that in my 20s when I was like, I'm 39 now. So back in my 20s when I was drinking a whole lot and I was just not having the fun I wanted. And then the blacking out, I was like, bruh, like, what is this? What's going on here? And so he told me this crazy story where he was like, that one time I blacked out and I ended up on the top floor of this, like, I don't know if it was like a 7-story building or something. It was at Five Points where he used to live in Denver. There was a little street corner called Five Points where there was like 5 blocks that met, kind of like a star instead of, the typical 4-way. But he said he was just sitting at a big poker table with a whole bunch of bigger dudes. And he's like, on the smaller side of, Latin descent. He was with a bunch of African Americans and he was just like, uh-oh. He came to and he was, gambling with these big guys. And he was just like, oh. And so, that terrified me because it's like, I just could feel off of him his energy that he was just like, ooh. So I forgot how we got out of that one, but it was a story and I could relate with it because I had my blackout stories that were quite embarrassing and could be terrifying. Somebody even once said that it was like there was a force field around me when I was getting a little too dumb, like, could have really hurt myself or ended my life on accident. And this person could see like some kind of force around me. And I was like, huh. So all these pieces, put together, trying to be smarter, trying to be more grounded and balanced. But growing up in church, that was some good memories. However, the home life was different. And you guys might be able to relate with this. I grew up in the Midwest, kind of south, and spare the rod, spoil the child was kind of the old school way of thinking. And so discipline could be quite explosive, I want to say. It was like an emotional thing. It wasn't always sound guidance. It was like reactionary. And I knew that was something I was going to have to work on too and try to break as far as a generational curse, a cycle, was I didn't want to be that way. And so here I am in my 30s, and I can still see myself sometimes having like snap, emotions like frustration, finding out that that's because I'm still in that control mode, wanting to control everything and control just how the world is, how it treats me, XYZ. And there's only so much you can do. And the things that you can do, I wasn't really, I was told, but not. So there's more things you can do as far as protecting your energy and just choosing what you want to manifest instead of repeating the cycles. Like, I come from a very affectionate family, yet tumultuous. Anyway, fast forward it to 13 years old, I ended up moving with my dad, and that changed everything. That changed my whole trajectory, because up until that point, I thought I was doing okay, but I knew I was depressed. I was sleeping a lot. I was sad. I was going through a lot, and I just didn't know what to do. So I reached out to somebody like my dad, who I thought would give me all the attention I needed. That was wrong. That was so wrong. Because at that age, I still didn't understand what a narcissist was. I didn't understand what abuse was, emotional, physical. Yes, I had heard about it. I had already heard about it. I believed my mother. That's why she left. I believed her, and I think it was a part of why she left, because she tells a story of looking at me when I was young, and I was crying because she was crying. And it was her seeing my face and her seeing my reaction that made her leave. And it was around that time where I could see in pictures that I started gaining weight. When you go through certain traumas, different coping mechanisms show up, like EDs. And I've struggled with that my entire life. The nervous system healing that I've been needing to do, it started then, but I'm learning it started even before then, because I'm a descendant of humans, so I carry the scars in my blood with all the things that my lineage has experienced, and even humanity. So I feel like this is the big one. This is the biggest, one of the biggest ones. Generational curses that we are called to break, and that's the lack mindset. That's the survival code that makes you desperate, that makes you feed into the false matrix. Because we might have been born into a cage, but we were born to break free. And it's not always sunshine and rainbows breaking free. Sometimes it's getting muddy and getting dirty and getting bloody and bruised and, really, I don't know, descending, going into your inner hell and excavating all the roots, the rotting ones, the ones that can, be incorporated into my reality, because even my shadow self is a part of me, and I'm not rejecting and I'm not demonizing. I call on Anubis, I call on Hades, I call on Persephone, I call on Hecate, I call on Archangel Asriel, I call on the best of the best to help me with this, because the dark night of the soul, as we call it, where you just do the shadow work and you dissect and heal the patterns that have been repeating, old wounds and old outcomes. The survival code can put you into this people-pleasing mode where you think, if I don't make everyone else happy, I'm not going to survive. That was loud. Stand on it. So people-pleasing is another one, I've been people-pleasing my whole life to the point where I didn't know what I even wanted. And I was freaking out. I was not okay. I was angry. And I didn't know where to put that anger. And my sacred rage was just building and building and building until my soul could not contain it anymore. And I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like my body had been screaming at me in all these different ways, like whether that was pain or digestive problems or acne or just things like signs, warning signs like, hey, this needs something more than what we're doing. Like, can't keep going. And I even had I've had some symptoms like for like respiratory things and I'm just like, ooh, like, and I've been, making plans to go to the doctor, don't worry. And also doing my healing work, tapping back into our healing codes that were taken from us. So if you think about the ancient Egyptian healing rituals and spells, that's what I'm talking about, like OG knowledge, just learning our spiritual technology and how it's been manipulated, how it's been siphoned, how it's been mimicked. It's literally trying to be replicated, but it can't. The source flame within us cannot be replicated. So there's all these other things that the enemy energies, if you want to call them that, will try. And they really sneak into my brain, with these doubtful thoughts that the past has taught me are the only outcomes possible. So I'm having to dig deep and ask for help from my grandpa on the other side, my spiritual guides, my archangels, everyone, for my highest timeline, for my highest good. I have been getting slowly better at asking them for help daily. Because otherwise it feels like one step forward, 3 steps back. So it really is replacing bad hygiene, bad spiritual hygiene with good spiritual hygiene, which is like not even something we know about. Like we've learned about praying, we've learned about repenting, we've learned about turning the other cheek, but I needed to know why the hell we were doing that. Like, don't make sense. I really feel like there was more to the story. And so that's what I've been doing. And I just want to share that with other people too. How to heal and recover from religious indoctrination and the chains. Because when I see how the Catholic Church started it and then other churches and just everything, it was just basically hijacking our inner God and telling us that it was somewhere else. It was outside of us. It was monetized. It was regulated. It was instructed. It was all these things, had to go through all these different types of, clearance levels to actually be called holy or like a proper resource. And I've always known that I've never felt closer to God than when I was alone. Like literally, I've been ostracized from my family. And even before that, I was isolated by them for like controlling reasons. So think Rapunzel, think Snow White, think the princesses that were just like isolated me. And so I got used to hearing and feeling God when I was by myself. That was when I was a kid. I knew that. And then I went through a lot of stuff in my 20s that definitely put a wedge in that connection, a big block. And I've been working on unblocking that. So I understand if people don't want to refer to Source as God. It took me a while to get back into that because I was like, excuse me. So, like, honestly, I was resonating more with the female conjugations of God. So, like, Mama Gaia, Mother Earth, you know, Sophia. I was just Goddess Isis, and Goddess Hathor, and Goddess Aphrodite, and Artemis. And I was resonating with the queens, with the women, with the divine feminine that has been suppressed. I was just like, you know what? I can't with all these dudes. Like, it's just like, it was a block. And so, what am I at? 16 minutes. Well, why did I wrap this up? So that's what I would offer you to, if you're like getting back into, because we all have a spirit, you know, we all came with a spirit. Let's be clear. We didn't all come with a religion. We came with a spiritual knowing, an inner knowing, and that's what we're tapping back into. So I just want to help others do that. Help others find peace and help others break the old programming, you know, the hardwired code that's rotting, that's outdated, that's frayed, that's corrupt or corroding. I was thinking of my copper pipes that were replaced and I'm like, corrosion. So these are like corroded programs and it's uncomfortable, guys. I'm not gonna lie, it's uncomfortable. But it's the necessary work to renew our co-creative powers and our stance with the divine and our connection with Source, to be able to achieve and maintain higher frequencies that allow us to live the lives we were meant to, not these shells or these illusions, because the pain is real. I'm just saying that the constant impending doom doesn't have to be real, because in the moment we can recognize that we're okay, and we can tell our nervous system, like, you're okay. You are loved and you are love. Jesus wants us to be talking to ourselves like that, like, you are loved and you are love. So I'll leave you guys with that, and I'll check in again. I just ranted. I didn't have anything organized. I was just like, I'm just going to talk. So, but I love you guys, and I hope this helps.